This horrible story happened in the province of Buenos Aires, and the victim of it became 12-year-old innocent girl. Candela Sol Rodriguez Labrador was born in Argentina on November 16, 1999. She was the second child of Alfredo Rodriguez and Carola Labrador, and the family lived in a town called Villa Tesey, located in the province of Buenos Aires. Candela was known by almost all the locals, and her close friends described her as a kind and cheerful child, easy to get along with. On August 22, 2011, she left home to meet her friends from the Girl Scout group and disappeared without a trace. At the time, Alfredo, Candela's father, had been in prison for over 14 months, arrested for a major theft he committed in the municipality of Marón. Therefore, the girl's mother had to go to the police herself to file a missing person report. After that, Carola found the strength to publicly address her daughter's kidnappers, demanding her immediate release. On August 23 of that year, large-scale searches for the underage girl began in several areas of the city. However, despite all the efforts of law enforcement officers, no clues indicating her whereabouts were found. The next day, another search phase was carried out, which this time covered a much larger area of the province of Buenos Aires. Although some people were already speculating that the reason for the child's kidnapping was to settle scores with her father, the Provincial Ministry of Justice and Security quickly dismissed this version. This was because, in the opinion of law enforcement, Alfredo, Candela's father, despite being behind bars, had practically no connections with the criminal world. This statement was somewhat hasty, as at that time, officers from the so-called provincial police, Minister of Justice and Security Ricardo Castle, Senior Commissioner Juan Carlos Pago, and Prosecutor Marcelo Tavallaro were working on the case. In addition, a group of expert psychologists were also involved in the investigation, who mainly worked with Candela's relatives. On one of the first days, Carola received several phone calls from one underage girl who claimed that Candela was kidnapped and held captive, and also subjected to various forms of physical assault. The authorities quickly established the location from which the calls were coming, and it turned out that the caller was a girl of Candela's age. She had simply made a bet with her older brother, and as punishment, she had to perform several strange actions, such as these calls. Perhaps this was quite cruel and reckless given the circumstances of what happened. It should also be noted that at the time of her disappearance, Candela already had her own mobile phone, but it was disconnected due to the non-payment. Despite this, the authorities managed to pressure mobile phone operators to activate the SIM card to track the location of the device, but ultimately these actions did not yield the desired result. On August 25, Carola organized a kind of march demanding that the authorities organize new searches for her daughter. Apparently, the woman was confident that Candela or her kidnappers would be able to see this event on television, so she again addressed the alleged criminals and said that she knew what they looked like, and also that she would find her daughter anyway. It all seemed as if Carola really knew the people who might be behind Candela's kidnapping. However, Minister Ricardo Castle did not comment on the woman's statement, only reporting that any person who provides information about the child's whereabouts would be paid a reward of 100,000 pesos. On August 27 of that year, Carola again insisted on sending a direct message to the kidnappers through the media. The woman believed that the people who held her daughter captive understood that their time was running out. In her new appeal, she even called them boys, which could suggest that she knew them. It seemed that Carola's words were finally heard. The next day, the woman received a call from the alleged kidnappers. They assured her that she would not see her daughter until she returned their money. They also told her to find out from her husband where he hid it. It is not known for sure whether the woman managed to talk to her husband, who, I remind you, was serving his sentence in prison. However, it could be said with certainty that already on August 29, Carola led another procession and again spoke with the representatives of the mass media. In her new message addressed to Candela, the woman stated that she was very close to finding her. On the morning of August 30, several Argentine celebrities led a company called 48 Hours for Candela. Obviously, its main goal was to find the child. The next day, in the area where the girl lived with her mother, brother and sister, several operational measures were carried out, as a result of which the authorities managed to find Candela's lifeless body. It was lying in a small duffel bag on the side of the Western Highway, about 30 blocks from home. In the evening of that day, the authorities seized a car that belonged to a man named Juan Manuel El Gordo Falasco, a neighbor of Rodriguez's family. It was assumed that he might be involved in the kidnapping and murder of the girl, and therefore some evidence could be found in this car. On the morning of September 1st, 2011, an autopsy was performed on Candela's body. It showed that the girl was killed either on August 29 or 30. The main cause of death was mechanical asphyxia. In addition, the forensic report indicated another monstrous circumstance. It turned out that just moments before the girl was killed, she was forced into intimacy. Candela's funeral took place on the same day. Literally, all members of her family, as well as other concerned citizens, came to express their condolences. On September 2nd of that year, law enforcement officers turned their attention to the former partner of the deceased girl's aunt. This man was known by the nickname Oiva Martin or Martin Egg, and he had an extensive criminal record consisting of crimes related to the sale of prohibited substances. However, he was not connected to this kidnapping. On September 5th, the Prosecutor General of the Municipality of Marone, Neva Woodgate, suggested that the deceased girl's body had been carefully washed by the criminals before they got rid of it. Neva also stated that neither she nor her colleagues had evidence indicating that the main goal of this kidnapping was simple extortion. In addition, according to the woman, no signs of abuse were found on Candela's body. However, this statement practically completely contradicted the information that was indicated in the autopsy report. Nevertheless, the authorities did not provide any clarifications on this matter. On September 6, the head of the administration of the province of Buenos Aires accused representatives of the media of obstructing the investigation of this case. Closer to the evening of the same day, the authorities searched a house located about 5 blocks from where the girl's body was found. There, they found her DNA. In fact, the house belonged to the woman named Gladys Miguel Cabrera. For this reason, she herself, as well as several of her closest acquaintances, namely Raymond Nestor Altamiro, Alfredo Monteres, and his son Gustavo Damiano, was immediately arrested. After that, police officers conducted a repeated, much more thorough search of Gladys' house and seized practically all the dishes on which food residues still remained. On the evening of September 7, 2011, the results of the research were made public, and it became known that Candela's DNA was found on one of the glasses. As a result, Gladys was charged with kidnapping the child. As for the the other detainees, they were charged with aiding and abetting the crime. All suspects were taken to the police station and interrogated personally by prosecutor Marcelo Tavallaro. Immediately after the interrogation, a hypothesis appeared that the main criminals were Gladys and Gustavo, and the other detainees only helped them get rid of the child's body. On September 8 of the same year, an inspector named Fabian Aveda, who had not previously figured in the investigation of this case, also became the subject of prosecution by the authorities. In the opinion of law enforcement officers, Aveda used his official position to participate in illegal activities and at the same time remain unpunished. In addition to the charge of complicity in the kidnapping of Candela, he also charged with the murder of a man named Fabian Rosita. On the same day, police officers interrogated some local residents in the hope of obtaining additional information on the Candela case. Just a few hours after that, the authorities detained another person named Hugo Elvio Bermudez. He lived with his wife and 3 children near the home of the kidnapped girl. A witness whose identity was never revealed accused the man not only of kidnapping the child, but also of drug trafficking. However, based on this testimony, Hugo's red van was seized, in which ropes and condoms were found, as well as a vacuum cleaner that could have been used to dispose of evidence. In fact, it was the witness who pointed to Bermudez who helped the authorities link most of the detainees to Candela's disappearance. On September 9, after another series of interrogations, everything suddenly changed. As a result, it was Hugo Bermudez who was named the main suspect, while the other detainees were only charged with complicity in the crime. Literally, on the same day, the lawyer of Alfredo Monteros and his son filed a motion for their immediate release. The basis of this request was the fact that they both allegedly did not know that they were participating in a crime and never contacted the kidnapped girl. The same thing was done by the human rights defender of Raymond Nestor. He not only stated that his client was innocent, but also accused the main witness of giving false testimony with the sole purpose of obtaining a reward, which by that time had already reached 400,000 pesos. In addition, Raymond's lawyer filed a written request to prosecutor Tavallaro, who personally participated in the inspection of Gladys Cabrera's house, wanting to receive an official report on the search in order to strengthen his line of defense. On September 12, 3 suspects, namely Gustavo Venezuela, as well as Alfredo Monteros and his son, were released. The other alleged criminals remained in custody. Around 8 p.m. that day, a public protest was held, organized by Raymond's wife. In essence, the only thing she was seeking was for the authorities to release her husband. Surprisingly, after 11 p.m., several new arrests were made, which were also related to Candela's kidnapping. The first to be arrested were taxi driver Jose Luis Flores, nicknamed El Polo, and his partner, a woman named Liliana Susana Cabrera. Another detainee was a man named Fabian Espandola. Notably, at the time of his arrest, he was in the hospital due to an attack he had recently suffered. However, already the next morning, the lawyer of Jose Luis Flores and his common-law wife was able to secure their release. On September 14, the investigation of this case, albeit briefly, took a new turn, and the authorities focused on information about the kidnapping of Alejandra Romanoli, Candela's aunt, which occurred in the early summer of that year. However, the theory that Alejandra and Candela were kidnapped by the same people was never confirmed. Meanwhile, Nestor Altamira, previously arrested as a suspected accomplice in the kidnapping, again declared his innocence. He addressed prosecutor Marcelo and personally provided information about some people he allegedly saw in Gladys Cabrera's house. In the evening of the same day, 2 more people were arrested, namely Fabian Gabriel and Guillermo Lopez. They were connected to the phone call received by Carola, Candela's mother, on August 29 and apparently had something to do with the already known Hugo Bermudez. The prosecutor personally took their testimony testimony, and both stated that they were innocent. I would like to clarify that all the time 7 people were still in custody. Almost all of them were detained thanks to the testimony of a certain witness whose identity still remains undisclosed. On September 17, several local news outlets confirmed the information that Hugo Bermudez had contacted Carola, Candela's mother. On the same day, a large-scale study of the information contained on the detainees' mobile phones began. The days later, Nesta's lawyer met with representatives of the media and stated that the results of the DNA tests of his client were negative. On September 22, the authorities began searching for another suspect, whom the previously detained Fabian had indicated. However, soon after that, Fabian stated that law enforcement officers simply forced him to admit his involvement in this case. By this time, Carola had no doubt that this kidnapping was a kind of revenge on her husband. However, she still denied that she knew any of the detainees and, as she could, defended her daughter's father. On September 25, 2011, prosecutor Marcelo Tavalaro made another statement in which he reported that each of the previously detained could have been involved in the Candela's death. However, due to the large number of mistakes made during the investigation of this case, the authorities would still have to make a difficult decision and release all suspects in order to start from scratch. Only in 2017, the Oral Criminal Court of the Municipality of Marón sentenced 63-year-old Hugo Bermudez and his accomplice, 43-year-old Leonardo Daniel, to life imprisonment for the illegal deprivation of liberty of an underage girl and subsequent deprivation of life. In addition, the court also issued a preliminary verdict against 49-year-old Fabian Gabriel, sentencing him to 4 years of imprisonment as a suspected accomplice to the crime. When issuing the verdict, the judges took into account such irrefutable evidence as DNA tests, transcripts of telephone conversations, and witness testimonies, which ultimately linked all 3 convicted to the kidnapping and deprivation of life of Candela. It should also be noted that in the opinion of the court, the main motive for the kidnapping was indeed to settle scores with her father, who apparently owed the criminals a large sum of money. In late June 2020, the Buenos Aires court upheld the life sentences previously imposed on defendants Hugo and Leonardo, as well as the 4-year prison term imposed on Fabian and Gabriel Gomez. I have nothing to say to you now. I can't say anything. I was going to do what I promised when they found her there. I kept my promise. I said that the criminals would be severely punished. Now, I have nothing to say. I want to go home to my children. This still won't bring her back. Our video has come to an end. If you want to see more interesting content, subscribe to our channel and press the bell to not miss the new release.